This is composition of functions, right? That's the title of this lesson. What we're going to do is substitute one function into another function, right? So the inside function will be the one that ends up being evaluated first, and then the outside function gets evaluated second. You read this as f of g of x. And this notation over here is the exact same thing, right? So this is read as f of g of x, right? So these two are supposed to be equivalent to each other. This notation is the one that makes more sense. This is the one that's a little confusing, but you need to get used to both of those, all right? So when there's a numerical value, you're definitely using the inside one first. So what you want to do is calculate g of 2, and you're going to use the g over here. It's 3x plus 1. So it's going to be 3 times 2 plus 1. So you're just substituting 2 for x. So that comes out to be 7. And now we're going to take this value and put it into f. So now we're finding f of 7. So that's going to be 2, 7 squared minus 3 times 7, right? So this 2 is that 2. 7 is what I got from the previous value. The exponent of 2 is outside the parentheses because of that x squared, minus 3, and then the x again, so put 7 again. And then you work that out. This is going to be 98 minus 21, which is 77. That's A. Let's go on to B. Let's zoom in a little. All right, so we're doing f of negative 3 first. F of negative 3. F of negative 3 equals 2, parentheses, negative 3 squared minus 3 times negative 3. All right, go ahead and work that out. It's going to be, so remember you're doing exponents first, so that should be a 9 times 2, which is 18, and negative 3 times negative 3 is plus 9, making it 27. All right, so it's 27. That's the value we're going to substitute into g because of this. We found f of negative 3. We found it to be 27, so now we're going to put it in g. So g of 27. So that's what g looks like, 3x plus 1. So we're replacing the x with 27. All right, so that's going to be 81 plus 1, which is 82. All right, so that's the final value. All right, the last one was 77. Okay, so in this one, we have f of negative 1. So what we're going to do is take f of negative 1, and we'll always take the closest one to it. Sorry, we're going to take the closest one to it. All right, so f of negative 1 is going to be this, right, 2 parentheses, negative 1 squared minus 3 times negative 1. So that's going to be 2 times 1, which is 2. Negative 3 times negative 1 is plus 3, making it 5. We're going to take this value and substitute it into f. So it's f of 5 now, so it's 2 parentheses. 5 goes in the parentheses, minus 3 times 5. 5 squared is 25 times 2 is 50. Minus 15, it's going to be 35, final answer. Then D, g of f of 5. So you're always going to start with the one that's closest to the number. So it's f of 5. We're finding f of 5 first. F of 5, substituted into 2x squared minus 3x. So it's 2 times 5 squared minus 3 times 5. We just did that over here, right? We just did that over here. So that's going to be 35. And then g of 35. And remember g was 3x plus 1. So we do 3 times 35 plus 1. 3 times 35 is 105 plus 1 makes 106. All right, it's 106. That is final answer for D. E, f of g of x. F of g of x. So, okay, so this doesn't have a number. Okay, this doesn't have a number. So we're going to change the order a little bit because I'm going to write f first. So I'm not doing g first, I'm going to write f first. And f looks like this. But now watch the way I write it, right? So for in the place of x, I'm going to put an open parentheses. So it's 2 open parentheses squared minus 3 open parentheses. So whenever I have an x, I am making big enough parentheses to put g in. I am putting g into f, so wherever x is, I gotta put enough space for 3x plus 1 to go in. So I am putting in 3x plus 1 and 3x plus 1. Right? So remember, f of x was 2x squared minus 3x. So in the place of x, I am putting the 3x plus 1. So in place of the x of f, right? The x of f, I'm replacing that x with g of x, which is 3x plus 1. All right, and then we work this out. Remember, you've got to square the binomial. When you square a binomial, it turns into a trinomial. Distribute the negative 3, so it's negative 9x minus 3. Multiply that out, so it's 18x squared plus 12x plus 2. Okay, just to remember, when you square a binomial, that's a little reminder of how that's worked out. When you square a binomial, that same thing as doing 3x plus 1 times 3x plus 1. So you gotta fold that out, so it's 9x squared, right? I did 3x times 3x. Now I'm doing 3x times 1 is 3x. And now I'm doing 1 times 3x, that's 3x. And 1 times 1 is 1. And that becomes 9x squared plus 6x plus 1. So if you're wondering where that 6x came from, that's where it came from. Alright, so that's how I got the 9x squared plus 6x plus 1. Then here, I just distributed the 2 into the trinomial. Now I'm going to combine like terms. So I got 18x squared, 12x minus 9x. 2 minus 3 is minus 1, so there it is. Alright, now we're doing g of f of x. So remember, g of x is 3x plus 1. So I'm going to put a nice big space. There's only one x in g of x, okay? And I'm going to put in that open parentheses f of x. F of x is 2x squared minus 3x. Now I distribute that 3. So that's 6x squared minus 9x plus 1. There's nothing to combine, so that's the answer. Next, g of x. So I'm putting into g. So remember, g looked like this, 3 parentheses plus 1, right? It's a 3x plus 1, right? The 3x plus 1. So, but I'm putting into those parentheses 3x plus 1. Go ahead and distribute. So that's 9x plus 3 plus 1. It's 9x plus 4. And there's the answer. B, you're putting f into f. So remember what f looked like. It's 2 parentheses squared minus 3 more parentheses. And inside of there, we're putting f. So we're putting 2x squared minus 3x into those parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and square that out. It's going to be 4x squared minus 12x cubed plus 9x squared. Distribute this negative 3, so it's negative 6x squared plus 9x. Make sure you understand how I got that. You're welcome to ask me in class if you don't understand where that trinomial comes from. But it's the same basic idea as the trinomial, where this trinomial came from. Alright, okay. Now we're going to distribute that too. So it's 8x squared minus 24. Oops. That should be x to the 4th, not x squared. Sorry. So 24x cubed plus 9. 9 times 2 is 18, x squared. Let me double check everything here. Okay. Alright. Minus 6x squared plus 9x. Combine like terms. You can only combine those two. So it's 8x to the 4th minus 24x cubed plus 12x squared plus 9x. And that's the answer. Alright, that's it. Okay. Moving on. The back side is a whole lot easier. I have to zoom out because you can't see everything you need to see. Alright. Okay. So, let's focus that. Okay, so here, notice on the back, whenever you're given a graph or a table, I have to give you the numerical value for x, so it won't be a generic function. I'm going to plug in -4 into g, so I've got to figure out what g of -4 is first. And remember from the other activity, here's g of x equals -4. The y value for g is 0, so g of -4 is 0. And then I'm going to do f of 0. F of 0, here's f, there's the function f, at x equals 0, f of x has a value of 2, so the answer is 2. That's it. And then if it's written this way, you're going to do the one that's closest to the number first, so it's f of 1. So here's my function, x equals 1 is here, and I go up to 3. So that's equal to 3. And then I'm doing g of 3, right? So I'm using that number into g. So g of 3 is here, and it's a little off the chart. It's just down there, so 4, 5, 6, 7, so it's a -7. So that's the answer there. All right, so this one is g of -3. Right, you always start with the letter or the function that's right next to the number, so g of -3. So here's g, -3 is here. Remember, that's the x value. And at x equals -3, g of x is -1. So that's -1. So now I'm doing f of -1. F of -1, here's x equals -1, f is 1. So there's the answer there. And this is g of -6. G of -6, here's -6, and y value is 2, or g value is 2. Now I'm doing g of 2. Here's x equals 2, and the g of x value down here at -6. So that's that one. Now let's do f of g of -2. So g of -2. Okay, so remember that's x, so x equals -2, and g of -2 is -3. And then not g, f of -3. Right, that's what's next, f of -3. F of whatever comes out of that, and -3 came out of g of -2, so it's f of -3. X is -3, so f is 11. Now we're doing f of 3. So x value is 3, f is -1, and g of -1 is, we'll look at x equals -1, g is 0. So that's it. Alright, and f of 1, so f of 1 first. So look at x equals 1, there's x equals 1, f is 3. So now we're doing f of 3. X equals 3, f of x is -1. Now we're doing g of 2. Remember this close letter, but they're all the same, so it doesn't matter. So g of 2, x equals 2, here's 2. G is -3. Now we're doing g of -3. So g, -3 is up here. G of that is -8. Final answer, -8. Now let's do this one, f of 2 first. F of 2 is 1. So now we're doing g of 1. X equals 1, g is 0. And then we still have another one, so we're doing f of 0. X equals 0, so f is 5. Final answer. Alright, so these are the final answer for these. Okay, that's it. I hope you understand it. If not, you're always welcome to ask questions in class.